Hi, everybody. Welcome back to chapter 10. This is the last chapter of this course, The Foundation of Information Technology. Now, we have discussed 9 chapters before that. We started with information technology, key concepts, and then we went over the computing and information technology building blocks. Then we discussed those building blocks in chapter 3 and 4, and we continued. We started with the hardware as a building block. Then in chapter 4, we talked about the software as an IT building block. Then we moved on networking in chapter 5 that we discussed the IT building blocks related to communication and network, and as one of the major examples, which is the internet and the World Wide Web. The last building block was the data, and we talked about those in chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 8 was about the database and data warehouse. And the last section, which is that has 2 chapters, chapter 9 and 10, we talked about in chapter 9 e-commerce and application. And now we have the final chapter, which is chapter 10, that is information technology security. So today's topic is going to be about the information technology security, and there are 5 major topics related to this chapter. The first one is that we need to understand what is a computer crime or e-crime, and then we need to define the role of the chief information or chief security officer that has been introduced recently in order to promote the security of information system. Now, information risk management also is one of the capability area that must be understood in when we talk about information security. So that is related to the risk and the assessment of those risks in order to ensure that in order to minimize the risk that is involved in related to information security. The fourth topic is about compliance with the recent U.S. laws as in relation to the certain protocols, a certain policy that has been presented to ensure that the data is being provided in a secure fashion. The fifth topic is going to be organizational policies for information security. Is that technically speaking, is different set of policies that should exist in order to promote information security. We know that data operators and IT administrators, IT managers, they are involved in the process of making sure that the network is secure, and they have to ensure that all the different layer of the security, or there are different standards being implemented to secure their environment. Now, whether their environment could be at the physical level or at the network level or at the higher levels, all these security should be in place in order to prevent from any security breach that would exist from the internal or the external users to the network. Now, as we all know, also the threats that is involved in terms of security, or the security threats, could cost organization a huge amount of money, and that's why we have to have a very good prevention mechanism in order to ensure that there is the computer crime does not exist in our corporate environment. So this chapter will define the computer crime on the network with examples of attacks by external attackers as well as insider or internal attackers. We talk about also security and risk management will be addressed in addition to we will have some exposure toward some U.S. laws that exist with in relation to the IT or information security. Let's begin with the computer crime or the e-crime. Now, the e-crime, as stands for, is electronic crime that involves computers or the network in the process that is with the objective of invading or threatening or directly targeting a computer or network from the other side for the purpose, of course, of stealing or threatening the network or disrupting the information system at the other end or at the area that is being attacked. So that's why we say that the computer crime or e-crime is the crime that involves a computer or a network that directly targets computer or networks, or use computer or networks to commit a crime, and it can involve single or thousands of computers in this process. And there is also increased internet connectivity. That's what we are referred to as cyber attacks. That has increased in the past decade or so. Now, there are different techniques that is used by external attackers as well as internal attackers. For example, external attackers, they could utilize different type of cyber attacks that could involve infecting or adding some kind of programs, what we call it a virus. So that this is one of the major examples that is external attackers is used in breaching or violating the security. So the virus is what we call it, is a small code that attaches itself to another code or to email, and when you try to open this file, this virus or this program will then start processing and working, and based on what's the content of this virus, it can do many damages that could even erase the storage or provide harm to the machines that is infecting. A good example, in the year of 2000, May 2000, there was a Visual Basic script that was written in Visual Basic scripting technique, and it was called I Love You. And this basically, this program or virus attaches itself as an email attachment, and when it transmitted to many people, many million people, and there was an estimated damage for this virus that is exceeding 10 billion. So it was between 10 to 15 billion US dollars. Now, the second type of the attack, the technique that is used by external attackers is the worm. The worm is also a type of virus, but it has the ability of copying itself from one machine to another over the internet or over the network. There is a SOBIG-F, which it was introduced in August 2003, spread via email also as an attachment. And this also has cost estimated damage of $5 to $10 billion. There's also Trojan Horse. It's a security breaking program that is introduced into the program and serves as a way. It's like a vehicle for an intruder to re-enter the computer in the future. Like the huge wooden horse, this was an example back in the Greek times. This was done to trick the Trojans into opening their city gate. So when they opened the city gate and they took the Trojan that is made of wood, and inside that Trojan there was militants and there was soldiers, so they were able to penetrate into the gated castle, and they were able to utilize, and that's why we refer to this as Trojan horse. So this sometimes it is like something innocent, but it has many different it has many different or bad intention behind this innocent thing. For example, sometimes you receive an electronic greeting card that could be so innocent and so nice, but behind it there could be hidden what we call it a Trojan horse type of viruses. There's also logic bomb that can be started or initiated or begin an action at certain time with a specific output or specific results that could happen afterward. Here the next examples that we have on this one, there's also a possibility of what we call it denial of service attack. This is the type of attack that really prevent the system, paralyze the system when it is happening. Denial of service attack is technically so much packet is being transmitted from one machine or multiple machine, from a single machine. If it's a single denial of service attack, multiple machine, it will be distributed denial of service attack for the purpose of flooding the network interface board at that machine. And when when that machine is the memory cannot handle the too many packets that is arriving to that machine, this will cause that machine to go down or out of service, and definitely that could result in loss of or damage, a lot of damages due to lack of service on that machine, and that could cost a lot of money for the organization when their system is down. There's also a newer social engineering techniques that is used, including phishing, which is actually phishing is the solicitation of sensitive personal information. It's like trying to solicit, so it's like mimicking an actual a good website, but you're trying to collect the data and then utilize those in your for email instant messages, and that's the concept of phishing. Now, spoofing is the use of fraudulent website also that mimics the legitimate one, often used in conjunction with phishing. So phishing is the solicitation, spoofing is the mimicking of websites. So those are new social media or social engineering type of techniques. Now, by insiders, there are many different computer crimes that could happen by insiders. Actually, as a matter of fact, the majority or the dangerous attack is happening from the insiders, from the employees, the current employees who knows the secrets of the organization, and they could damage or provide great damage to the organization. So their intention could be gaining unauthorized access to information system and networks, theft of intellectual property, for example, rights, trade secrets, for the purpose of selling it to the competitors or to others. Also data breaching by organization business partners. That's also an example of computer crimes by insiders. Now the second topic of this chapter is that there is a new title used by organizations called Chief Security Officer. This role is very important. That is responsible for ensuring that the network or the infrastructure is being secured, data is secured, and the risk is minimized. That's why the key tasks presented are identifying, prioritizing relevant risks, so in order to ensure that the risk is minimized or at minimum level. There is also additional job function related to Chief Security Officer, which is estimate essential avoidable risk. In other words, do the risk analysis, assess, evaluate how much the cost of the risk, how much the cost of deploying the equipment, how much savings will happen if the new security equipment or devices is being implemented. So in order for him to mitigate other risks, an appropriate point of them in order to diminish the return on security investments. Now, so the idea behind it is that we need to make sure that, or the Chief Security Officer need to make sure that the risk is going down or minimized, of course, in order to avoid the risk, in order to mitigate from risk, in order to prevent from risk. There is also going to be a cost to do that. So there is a cost of additional equipment or additional security devices that is needed in order to do this or to minimize the risk. That's why there's a risk management steps, which are steps involved in managing the risk, which includes determining the organization's information assets and their values. So this is the first step, is to know what we want, what are we trying to protect here. We need to determine the length of time the organization can sustain without giving information. As in other words, can function without certain specific equipment, certain specific server. So we need to develop and implement security procedures to protect the assets. The fourth topic, which is the U.S. has since 2 or 3 decades has started developing different laws related to information security that impact certain industry, and there has been many different laws, and there's a table here that tabulates the certain laws that has been enforced since back in 1996. There was the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. There's also in 1999 there was another act for it's called Gramm-Leach Act. Is for the privacy, personal, financial, and credit information. There's the Patriot Act in 2001. There's also the one that is very important. This is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act (SOX) in 2002, in order to ensure the integrity of financial information statements and the disclosure of internal controls over the enterprise or the organization. There is also the U.S. Department of Defense continuously implementing different standards to make sure that organizations are or information security is being presented. The fifth topic here is that we need to look at the organizational policies for information security. Each organization must establish the general policy for their security practices, and they have to enforce those security in the organization from different levels. That's why there must be a master security plan being presented and deployed in the organization. That's why we can say a written policy document describing what it is and is not permissible use of information in the organization, and the consequences in terms of its violation should be presented in the policy. Okay, that's why we have here the center is the information security in this diagram, and there has to be certain policies. There has to be some kind of access control list for different equipment, network security, firewalls. There has to be an antivirus or spyware policies. There has to be more education to the staffing. There has to be some kind of physical and security to ensure that physical and infrastructure is being secured. There has to be some kind of penetration testing done by a third-party organization to ensure that there is security. There has to be encryption. Encryption has to be involved. There's also data type and database security, and also data center physical and virtual security. All these practices should be implemented by organizations in order to make sure that their IT and infrastructure is being secured. By reaching this one, we have reached the end of this chapter 10, and we have reached the end of our course, The Foundation of Information Technology. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.